For today's watch review, we're taking a look at a watch from Invicta. This is from their Reserve line, and it is the Pro Diver, or model number 34459. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. For price, we're looking at around $900. Of course, that price is going to vary depending on which store you go to, and also if you're looking at the secondhand market. But new, that's about what you should expect to pay. For the diameter, we're looking at 46.6 millimeters or 52.6 millimeters if we include the crown. Case thickness is 15.5 millimeters. Lug to lug is 56.3 millimeters. And lug width is 23 millimeters. The weight of this watch currently is 340 grams or 12 ounces. I say currently because I removed some links, so it actually comes out of the box a little bit heavier. For a good point of reference, 340 grams is approximately the weight of wearing 2 baby tunas on your wrist. The Reserve Pro Diver comes with the Ronda R150 movement, which means that it is automatic and hacking, and it comes with 3 hands with a date window rated for plus or minus 12 seconds per day. It beats 28,800 beats per hour with a 40-hour power reserve. It is also certified NIHS 91-10, which is the accidental shock test. Case material is tungsten, and this includes the bracelet as well. And right at the top you can see that there is a 120 click unidirectional bezel with lume applied to all of the minute markers. On the right hand side there is a screw down crown, and on the back there is a caseback secured by 8 screws. I do want to mention that I believe the caseback is steel and not tungsten. Coming back to the top, we've got a flame fusion crystal with a date magnification window, and underneath that crystal there are applied indices with lume applied to all of the indices and all 3 hands, and then the sandstone dial material at the very bottom. And this entire package is rated for 500 meters of water resistance. The lume here is decent. It's much better than what I'm used to with your average Invictas. As far as application goes, I think they apply the lume everywhere that it matters, from the bezel to the hands and the indices. Even with a date window, they still added a lumed indice where most other watches would leave that out. I'm not 100% sure which type of lume they used, as it is not disclosed on any of the Invicta websites, so I can only make a guess based on what I know. And I will say that it's way better than Invicta's Tritonite, but maybe slightly less than Super Luminova. Hopefully that's enough information for you to get a decent idea of what to expect with the glow time of this lume. The dial here is something really special. Of course there will always be someone that's got something critical to say, but if you're like me and you like it, then let me tell you, it is as cool as the pictures make it look. Starting off with the obvious, the sandstone dial is stunning. As you angle the face across the light, you can see how it glistens and sparkles unlike any other plain watch face. It elicits a feeling of looking into a crowd of paparazzi camera flashes because you're the star of the show. Or even something more romantic, like gazing at the Milky Way plastered across a clear night sky. The conservative indices keep the focus on the sandstone dial and complements the contrasting colors quite nicely. The hands almost seem like a combination of spade and sword hands, giving them a more modern styling, which is also fitting for this watch. One gripe that I have is that I'm not a fan of the Reserve logo, as I would rather look at the dial uninterrupted. The 120 click bezel is solid and stiff with an emphasis on the stiffness. There is a scallop texturing on the edge, however, due to the minimal gripping surface and stiff action, turning the bezel is not the most pleasant of bezel turning experiences. Perhaps over time it will wear in and become easier to set, however that really isn't a major concern of mine. Let's be real here, are you really buying a sparkling tungsten watch to actually go diving? The fact that it's solidly attached to the case and lines up properly is good enough for me. The crown is octagonal in shape and signed with the Reserve logo. Due to tungsten being incredibly difficult to engrave, the signature lacks any impressive appeal and the watch may have been better off without anything there. However, on a positive note, the octagonal shape does give the watch a very fun industrial touch to it. It hasn't grown on me too much, but it's different and I appreciate that. Ideally, I would have preferred a knurled or coin-edged crown. The crown itself is threaded nicely and operates smoothly with no issues. Placing it in the second position, first position, or screwing it back in is all a very easy process. The bracelet is about as tool-like as you're gonna get with the screw-in link pins. It straight up looks like something you would see on Dr. Robotnik's assembly line, and it's so ridiculously awesome. From the front, you would imagine it's just like any other plain Jane bracelet, and then when you turn it to the side, you're just like, holy moly, that is one heck of a bracelet. It's tungsten, so it's super dense and heavy, meaning that there's really no position you can be in where you're not going to feel the weight of it on your wrist. The butterfly clasp is set up in such a way that you can only open and close it in a specific order. It caught me off guard at first, but now I appreciate it as it provides one extra level of security from your clasp inadvertently opening. There is a circular polish on the clasp as well, really adding to that premium feel of a Reserve level Invicta. This is what really sold me. I could have walked away from this watch without a second thought until I saw pictures of this caseback. I don't know about you, but it was love at first sight for me. The display caseback showing the steel tone rotor is so classy, and the brushed finish of the caseback paired with the 8 screws securing it in place make it look like some kind of professional machinery. I had no idea Invicta had something like this, and I must say I was very impressed. The finishing is close to a mirror polish and places this watch more in the jewelry category, which I think was the intended purpose of the watch. With the finishing and the dial, I would say this is more of a bracelet that tells time. On the left side of the case, you have the standard Invicta engraving. However, in this case, I think they should have left it out. I normally love that engraving, but just like with the crown, because tungsten is so difficult to engrave, you end up with just a half-assed attempt that looks more like a faded laser etching. Aside from that, the rest of the watch is spectacular, and it's very comforting knowing that you could drag this watch down a concrete hallway with not a single scratch after the fact. There's a few things that I'm unhappy about with this Reserve Pro Diver. However, the good things are going to leave a lasting impression more so than the bad things. But let's start off with the bad. So number one, I don't like the engravings. It would have been better to have had just a clean look on the tungsten. On any other day, I love it on their steel watches, but here the execution was done poorly. Number two, butterfly clasps suck. This of course is my opinion. However, I'm used to pro divers having fold-over clasps, and I feel that a butterfly clasp is an unnecessary attempt to make this watch fancy. The watch is fancy as it is. A fold-over clasp would have been a good contrast to bring it back down to everyday wearability. Number three is the weight, but I consider that a good thing too. This watch is so damn heavy that it jumps over the line of ridiculousness and sprints over to crazy town. It's so heavy that if you're not constantly moving your wrist to alleviate the pressure on a specific point, you will actually feel physical discomfort over a short period of time. I'm one of those odd individuals that sleeps with a watch on, and this is not a good watch to relax in bed with. So why is the weight a good thing? Well, it's not a surprise that it's super heavy. If you're buying this watch, it's because you fully accept that fact and you enjoy the pure shock value of it all. There is something so entertaining about having a watch this size weigh this much. It feels unreal, like you're holding something out of this world, and for that it's really cool. The other good things about this watch that are going to leave a lasting impression on me is the overall quality, from the caseback to the dial and to the Swiss movement. This is also the only watch I have ever owned that is essentially 100% scratch proof. That paired with the shock tested R150 movement means that this watch is about as close to having an actual tank on your wrist as you're ever going to get. I have always loved Invicta, but they were always an affordable, fun watch to me. I've never really ventured deep into the reserve line, so this was an eye-opening experience to see what Invicta is truly capable of. Whatever your thoughts are of the brand, I can say for myself that I now think they are a serious contender in the upper tier level of watches. Does that mean I'm going to compare them to other luxury brands that cost 8 to 10 times more? Of course not. Competing watches against each other is not the purpose of my collecting. I have more fun enjoying each watch based off of their own merits, and this Reserve Pro Diver definitely has its own merits. Considering the materials used and also the fact that this is somewhat of a rare collector's item, I would say that it's fairly priced. So if you happen to come across one at the price I mentioned, then that would be a respectable deal. Do I recommend it? Well, if you're a collector and you do enjoy the whole shock factor of having a 350 gram watch, then yeah, I absolutely recommend it. But there are other Reserve Pro Divers that look the same but that are made out of steel, which I believe would serve better for everyday wear. So if you really like the look but aren't a fan of the weight, then maybe go for the steel versions. But anyways, that's all of my thoughts for now, so I hope you enjoyed the video and that I was able to help you with your next watch purchase. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Alright, bye.